In today's episode, I'll be giving my picks and preview for UFC 304, going through each of the fight from the early prelims down to the main event in Manchester, England. So let's jump right into UFC 304. Do something, man. People are questioning you. Shut up. Shut up. Okay, yep, do that. Sure, guys. Stupid and dumb. Just an idiot. Get your shit together, son. Fuck it. I loved it. Welcome to the dub. Before we get into UFC 304, let's do a little recap of UFC 303. I'm not going to go too deep into the fights, but I will say we had a good night here at the Dubcast. Went up a lot of units, pretty much hit every single bet besides one. So hope you guys were tailing. I know last time UFC episode was maybe barely audible for you guys. Sorry about that. We were trying to get a scenic overlay. You know, things don't work out all the time, but if you took my picks, you won a lot of money. So we hit on Ian Gary, even though it was a boring fight. We hit on Roman Dolidze / the Lopes parlay. Well, Lopes got canceled versus Ortega, and it ended up being Ige, but I'm only counting that as Roman Dolidze winning because the bet got voided. Hence, that part of the parlay was voided, but we still hit. And Alex Pereira, winner. Obvious. Alex Pereira, number one in the sport right now, on a crazy run. Yeah, I took him, and you guys should have too. Made a lot of parlays. Shout out DraftKings, got some bonus bets in. Well, I didn't because they scammed me, but I have some bonus bets locked in for this, which we'll talk about later. But we made money. Can't wait to go to another state to bet tomorrow / today / today when you're watching this. So yeah, UFC 303. Don't really dive into it or jump too deep into it. I didn't think it was that great of a card. It was saved by Alex at the end again. The Ige versus Lopes fight was pretty boring. Anthony Smith just did cardio for 15 minutes, really boring. Ian Gary versus Venom Page was surprisingly really boring. It was just not hitting. Really, that Macy Chiasson versus Myro Bueno Silva fight was like the fight of the main card. Well, second fight of the main card, and then that was just yeah. So let's move on to our betting tracker. So I was 4-5 coming into UFC 304. I gave you Pereira, I gave you Gary, I gave you Dolidze / Lopes parlay. We're up to 7-5 now. A little 3-0 run there, so we're in the positive, we're in the green. I'm seeing green. I'm sure this will go well. So yeah, and just an update on my guest Bert's record. He was 2-2. He took Yuri and Anthony Smith. Mistake for Anthony Smith for sure. Yuri, maybe he just didn't have the good Chamonix in his side. Next time, buddy. But he did take Ian Machado Gary as well, and he also took Joe Pfeiffer, and he also took Diego Lopes, but that fight was canceled. So an even 2-2 for Bert. Overall, decent card / predictions from us. So yeah, let's hope we can continue the magic here. So we head to UFC 304, which takes place in Manchester, England. Right off the bat, as I will say, as I did for the Urcheg fight in Brazil, this could be interesting with the England crowd. Apparently, it's going to be like 4 a.m. England time when they're fighting. Doesn't mean that arena is not going to be packed to the brim. I'm sure Dana sold out like 3 months ago. And not every fight, like the Brazil one, features a Brazilian fighter, but there are a lot of British fighters on this card, and I think that will play into whether they win the fights or not. So, with that being said, let's jump in from the early prelims to the main card, starting off with our early prelims, of course. So the first fight is a strawweight bout between Shauna Bannon, she is the -175 favorite, and Alice Ardaline, who is +145. So as always, I'll do a little bit about each of the fighters and then give my picks / analysis for the fight. So Shauna Bannon, as always for these first fights on the prelims, not much to be had here. Usually new UFC fighters, see what they got. So Shauna Bannon, in her career, she's 5-1. In the UFC, she's 0-1, which is rare, I feel like, but she is. 4 of her last 6 fights have gone to decision. And in this fight, she has 2 inches of height advantage. Got to shout out my height people out there who care about that, so there you go. Moving on to Alice Ardaline. This is her first UFC fight. She has a 5-fight win streak heading into this fight. I don't think she has a great record from her previous promotions, but we'll see what this fight can bring for her. She can do it in any which of ways. She's both won and lost by knockout. She has decision wins, she has decision losses, and she has submission wins, submission losses. She just hasn't lost by knockout. Basically, every other things have happened. And one of the funniest pulls in this card is the fact that she actually fought and lost to Zhang Wei Li a while ago. So there is some history there of her fighting UFC fighters. Obviously, Zhang Wei Li, the champion of the world now. So that would be funny if one day we can see a rematch between those two, which I doubt will ever happen. That being said, I'll keep it brief. The picks, cardinal rule of the Dubcast from now on, I will never bet on the first fight of the prelims. Just feel like that's bad voodoo. You're just in too deep, even though I will have picks for you on the next fight. But this one, I'm just not seeing anything really. If you're looking for underdogs, I mean, Ardeline could be fine, but it's one fight in the UFC versus 0 fights in the UFC. Like, it's just flip a coin and pick one. Ardeline, because she's plus money, like, that's your moneymaker, I guess. It's tough to really tell what will happen, even like submission, decision, all that. So maybe girls fight, if you like that, go to decision, but I'm not advising you to take anything in this fight. So with that being said, let's quickly move to our second fight. It is a heavyweight bout between Mick Parkin, who is a minus 300 favorite, and he faces off against Lucas Brzezinski, who is plus 235, an underdog. So Mick Parkin is our first British fighter on the card, I believe. I'm not sure if either of those two girls are British. The thing on ESPN was being a little glitchy, so if they are, I'm sorry. If not, Mick Parkin is first. So he's one of actually a couple, I think there's 2 or 3 of them on this card who are undefeated. So he's 9-0 in the UFC, he's 3-0, and he also is 1-0 in the Dana White Contender Series, which propelled him into the UFC. So as always for these early prelim guys slash gals, they don't really have a lot of fights under their belt, so it's tough to see who they've gone up against, but we do have one here for a notable win for Mick. He has beaten Kamaru Usman's brother, Muhammad Usman. I think that's his brother. I hope it is. Other than that, don't really recognize any of the names that he's fought. All 3 of his wins in the UFC have come by decision, but in his previous promotions, he pulled all knockouts, and I don't put a lot of weight into that because the UFC is a very different sport than Cage Warriors or even Bellator or whatever. We've seen that there's just a difference in talent level, and yeah, I'm just bullshitting. I don't know anything about these other promotions, but I'm just assuming that it's different because 3 decisions in the UFC and 0 in the other one. So I don't know. We'll see. Moving on to Brzezinski. He is 1-3 in the UFC after he got his way in through the Dana White Contender Series, winning. He lost to Martin Buday, who last time I told you to take by decision. Easy money there. But he's not a great fighter. Martin Buday almost lost that one. It was a split decision. So don't really put much stock into that. And he also lost to him, so not great for you. He's been knocked out before, but most of his losses come by decision. Mostly decision losses here. So the picks, cash him. Well, I'll give you my... First, I'm like word vomiting. First, I think I should explain that at the end, my new thing now, I'm going to give you guys some things that I'll probably bet on, and also my certified locks, which go on my betting card to keep for the official record for the channel. So I'll kind of, as I go through the fights, I'll hint at stuff that I like, and then at the end I'll reveal my card and the things that I'll probably bet on. So I like Mick outright here, minus 300. I know that doesn't really move the needle for a lot of people, but I think it's a decent play. Maybe a good parlay piece, a little minus 300 action. I don't like that it's an early prelim though, because if you lose this, you lose the parlay. So I'm contemplating that. I also think Parkin by decision. You know what? If he's going to win, it's most likely going to be by decision. I think it more than likely goes the distance either way, even if Brzezinski somehow pulls off this win. So 2 things I like there out of this one. Moving on to the third fight on the early prelims, we have a welterweight battle between Sam Patterson, who is a minus 475 favorite, and he goes against Kiefer Crosby, who is a plus 340 underdog. So Sam Patterson is British. Keep that in mind. In the UFC, he's 1-1. I don't recognize any of the names he's fought so far, but being this much of a favorite, you can tell that Vegas likes him a lot. Both of his wins in the UFC, one becoming in Dana White Contender Series, have come by submission. And when he lost, he was knocked out, and he has 8 inches of reach on Kiefer in this fight. So that's, yeah, my reach, people. Bow. 8 inches. Bow. Kiefer Crosby, he's only fought in the UFC once, and he was submitted in September of 2023, so almost 9 months ago. 9 months ago, I don't know when exactly it was. In his other promotions, he came from Bellator. He can win in a various amount of ways. So this one I'm a little tentative on for my picks. I like Patterson, but at almost minus 500, there's not really much you can do with that. I'm most likely staying away from straight up money line, but I do think there is a little stone throw at Patterson by submission. Why not? His 2 wins in the UFC have come by submission. Depending on the odds on that, could be a decent play there. So keep an eye out for Sam Patterson by submission. Moving forward in these early prelims, I think we have 5 fights in the early prelims, which is rare for UFC. Usually, I've every time I've done this, it's been like maybe 3 or 4. So loaded early prelims, including our 4th fight, which is actually a ranked fight between flyweights number 6 Muhammad Mokaev, who is the -155 favorite, and he faces number 8 Manel Cape. Sorry, bro, if I mispronounced your name. He is +130 and the underdog. So the funny story about this fight is this. I think this was on the main card, and then it got moved down to the prelims, and now it got moved down to the early prelims, which is very weird because there's a fight on the main card that we'll talk about later that I don't find that intriguing in comparison to this one, especially since both these guys are ranked. That flyweight division is not. I know they're not the biggest draw in the sport, but there are some interesting things going on. Especially this fight could be like a middle fight to, I don't know, move up into the top 5 is for sure. And I don't know, but here we are. People say Mokaev is boring. I haven't seen either of these guys fight, I believe, so we'll see what happens. Could be a little good fight here on the early prelims. So a little bit about Muhammad Mokaev. He is British, so there's your Brit for this fight. He's another one of the undefeated people, 12-0 and 6-0 in the UFC. Another big story in this fight is he's fighting for his contract to be renewed. He is on his last fight of the contract, so he's going to want to show out and make sure that the UFC wants to keep him, that he's entertaining enough to do that. So he might try and pull some crazy shit. I don't know. He could try and do some crazy knockouts, pull a guillotine, pull a fucking Dustin Poirier, not Justin Poirier. We'll see, man. I don't know. You got to keep this in mind. This is UFC betting, so everything's got to be important. His wins in the UFC, 4 of them were submissions, 2 of them were decision wins. So we'll see what happens for Mokaev and his opponent, Manel Cape. He is 4-2 in the UFC, and he's on a little 2-fight win streak. His wins have come by decision and are 2 by decision, 2 by knockout. So 2-2 there for the 4. And for my height and reach people, he lacks 2 inches in both of those to Mokaev. So my picks for this, staying away, nothing will be added to the card, but I do like Mokaev if I had to pick one. I think he's got to prove himself. He's the number 6 guy in this division. I think he wants to move up. I think he wants to show a little spark, show something going on, man. Dana needs to see something. He just moved you down to prove your point. Like, you got to listen to, like, Lose Yourself in the locker room. Like, let's go, like, knock him out. Could be it, bro. This could be your UFC career. You're undefeated. I get it. So he may just play conservative. But I like Mokaev, I think, but also Cape, I'm sorry, I don't know which one it is very capable, so I'm just staying away from this one. As the odds indicate, it's sort of a toss-up. I could also see it going the distance. I could see it ending early. I think this fight has a lot of variability in it, so we stay away and move on to our last fight of the early prelims, a welterweight battle between Oban Elliott, who is +115 on the underdog and the money line. Preston Parsons, our favorite, is -135. So a little bit about Oban Elliott. He is 1-0 in the UFC and also 1-0 in the Dana White Contender Series. For those of you who don't know what the Dana White Contender Series is, it's basically like trying to prove it's like a tryout for the UFC. So both of his wins in the UFC promotions were by decision. So in the Dana White Contender Series and in his one fight in the UFC. In his other promotions, besides the UFC, he had some submissions, some knockouts, but the last 3 before making his way to the UFC were all decisions. And his opponent, Preston Parsons, 2-2 in the UFC, hasn't fought great comp so far, but he was knocked out by Daniel Rodriguez, who I believe is moving up the rankings of his weight division, which could still be welterweight. It's hard to keep track of all the divisions, sorry. 3 of his fights have gone to decision, and the last 3 of his fights in the UFC have gone to decision. Those were the last 3. So came to the UFC, got knocked out by Daniel Rodriguez, and since then it's been all decisions. So yeah, that one loss to Rodriguez was a knockout, and then in his previous promotion, he also had a ton of subs as losses, I believe. It could be wins too. I didn't write specifically, but there are some submissions mixed in there for Parsons. So my picks for this fight, don't love either side here. I'm reminder to myself, remember that these fights are early prelims for a reason. Can't take a million things here. Don't want the night to be over too soon. There's a lot of variability in these early prelims. So what I do like is the fight going the distance, which was -135 in my book the last I checked, and we'll make a nice parlay piece, which with some other fights that we'll throw to go the distance maybe later on. So keep that in mind. But as for moneyline, as a side, probably lean Elliott but I don't know. That would be my guess, but I'm not betting on it, so I don't know. Now we make our way to the prelims. Starting it off is a light heavyweight bout between Modestas Bukakis, who is minus 160 and our favorite, and he goes off against Marcin Pracino, plus 135 on the money line. So our boy Modestas Bukakis, 3-4 in the UFC. He's got some notable losses, all to a bunch of people that actually know who they are. We got Vitor Petrino, famously got submitted by Anthony Smith, I believe, at UFC 301. Khalil Roundtree, who Joe Rogan calls like a dangerous guy, so I think he's pretty good. I haven't watched him fight because I'm in and out of the UFC, fully locked in now since 301. But anything that happened before that, there's like a 50%, there's like a 40% chance I watched it. Mikhail Lagajezek, the guy that Holland beat and submitted, so you're losing to this guy, like not great. Jimmy Crute, who I think is mid. So yeah, not really. Whenever he goes up against that kind of middle tier of the division, doesn't seem like it goes well for him, and his wins were against people I don't know. So what does that tell you? Both of his wins, though, were by decisions, and he did get knocked out by Petrino. He has some knockouts in previous promotions, but I think all these guys do, so I don't think that matters too much. And moving to our underdog, Marcin Pracino. He is 4-5 in the UFC. He actually beat Khalil Roundtree, so how about that? He also lost to Petrino, and he also lost to Ankalaev, who is the number one contender for the heavyweight division now. Or light heavyweight, sorry. 3 out of his last 4 wins in the UFC have come via decision. And when he's lost, his 5 losses, 4 out of the 5 times, have been by knockout, and that other one was a sub. So picks here. Let's roll Petrino. Little underdog action. Didn't give you guys any underdogs last time. Sorry. Got you one this time. It's Petrino. First fight of the prelims. Let's do it. I think he can get it done. He has a better resume and a bit more experience in the UFC, and I think this one's a toss-up. So the odds you're getting with Petrino is a way better bet than with Buskauskas. So I'm taking Petrino. We can add that to the card. Spoiler alert, but that will be on the card. I can't say how it will end, but I do like Petrino money line, little sprinkle, plus 135. 135. So there you go. Our next fight is a bantamweight fight between Jake Hadley and Colin Lufran. So Jake Hadley is plus 175, our underdog, and Colin Lufran is minus 210. So a little bit about Jake Hadley, British, keep that in mind. 3-3 in the UFC this far. He has a win over Mitch Raposo, which is not very impressive considering Mitch Raposo was the first fight on the 302 prelims, or he subbed in. I don't think Mitch Raposo is anything to write home about, but that's a name I know, so I'll bring it up. All of his losses have come by decision, and 2 submissions and a knockout in his 3 wins. 2 inches of reach advantage and 1 inch taller than Colin Lufran. So my inch and reach people, there you go. A little bit about Colin. He's Irish, and I should know how to say his name, but I just don't. Sorry. 1-1 in the UFC. Once again, don't know the competition he's faced. Both fights have ended in decision through the UFC. And his previous promotion, he had a lot of knockouts, but so does everyone at this point, and only one of them came to decision. So 9-1 overall record. So yeah, a lot of knockouts in there if you look at that. So honestly, though, I do like this to go the distance, because I think once you get to the UFC, like, you can be all you want in Cage Warriors and kickboxing and whatever leagues, and then you come to the UFC and you realize, oh shit, I gotta go to the distance. Like Michael Venom Page had 1 million knockouts in the Bellator, but he comes to the UFC, 2 decision fights so far. So I don't like either side. If you're looking to chase odds, Jake Hadley, why not? Plus 175. Colin's only lost once, though, so there's that. I think he could be a sneaker underdog, but I'm not confident enough to bet it. But we'll see if I add them going to the distance to the card later on. Our next fight is a strawweight fight between Molly McCann, who is minus 380 and the big favorite. She faces off against underdog Bruna Brazil, plus 280. So apparently there's a lot of hype around this Molly McCann chick. Not sure if I ever watched her fight before. I don't think so. She's British, so her and Patty Pimblett have been getting hyped up a lot as this sort of duo coming into this fight card. She's 2 inches shorter than Bruna. She has 3.5 inches less of reach. She has a super long UFC career. I'll be honest. I looked at her fights. I don't see anything relevant in my mind. But she does have relevant losses to Erin Blanchfield, Talia Santos, and Jillian Robertson, who fought at 303. So there are some girls here that I've know, but she lost all of them. Her last 5 fights have ended early. In those last 5 fights, she had 3 wins. Two of them were by knockout, and one of them was by submission. And then her 2 losses both came by submission. So Brazilians like to go for submissions. That could be something to watch. Brazil, like if you're taking like a plus 2,000, I don't know. But a little bit about Bruna, Brazil. I don't know why I'm talking 100 miles an hour right now. This is her 5th UFC fight. 2-2 in her previous 4, and no noticeable competition for what I've seen so far. So be that what it may. Her last 2 fights have gone to decision, and the 2 fights before that, she was 1-1. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. I think if I had to pick, I think it sets up well for McCann, her home crowd. They probably love her there. From what I'm gathering on social media, continue this hype around her and win a somewhat easy one here over Bruna Brazil. I know that loss against, I believe, Blanchfield was pretty bad, so she won her last fight, get her a little 2-win streak, get her back in this rankings, get her back relevant. I don't think the odds are enough, though, for me to bet it at almost minus 380. I'm not confident enough, and I just, yeah. However, I may like it to go not the distance, but I don't think I took that because the odds were not good. So, staying away from Molly McCann versus Bruna Brazil. Our last fight of the prelims is a featherweight bout between Nathaniel Wood, and he is minus 450 and the big favorite. He faces off against Daniel Pineda, plus 325 underdog. So Nathaniel Wood, British, keep that in mind. Pretty successful UFC career so far. He started in 2018. He's won against Andre Fili, who we saw at UFC 303. Charles Jourdain, who I believe is a medium name. His last fight he lost, and he's starting. When he started his career in the UFC, he had a lot of submissions, but and knockouts. But in his last 6 fights, they've all gone to decision. A little bit about Daniel Pineda. He is 28-15, which is a crazy record. That's a crazy amount of fights. He has lots of experience just fighting overall, but only 5 of them were in the UFC. In the UFC, he is 2-2-1 with a draw, I believe. He has notable losses to Cub Swanson, who's not great, and Alex Caceres, who I also believe is not great. Some medium pack guys. He hasn't really beat them when he's gone up to fight them. And his 4 UFC fights that have counted, one of them has been a decision, 2 of them knockout, and 1 submission. And obviously, if that was a draw, it went to decision. So I think my picks, I think this is another easy one for the Brits. I think Wood takes it. It seems like they kind of gas up these Brit fights and they become big favorites. I don't know if that's because they're in Britain or they're just way better fighters and they're trying to get them free, easy wins. But again, minus 450, I ain't touching that with a 10-foot pole, so I will be staying away from this fight. Considering that Pineda has a various amount of ways that he goes down, I got nothing here for you, sorry. But I would pick Wood. Now our main card, the moment you've all been waiting for. We have the first fight in the main card is a featherweight bout between number 6th ranked Arnold Allen, who's minus 245. He faces off against Giga Chikadze, who is plus 200, and the number 10th ranked contender in the featherweight division. So Arnold Allen is British. I think another one of these guys that the Brits love, so we'll see how that factors in. He's been in the UFC a long ass time, since 2015. His only 2 losses during that time were to Evloev, Evloev. Don't know how to pronounce your name, sorry, and I know I should know that name probably too, but I know he's good, so I'll keep that in mind. And Max Holloway, the biggest, probably top 3 star in the UFC right now. So pretty 2 impressive losses there, nothing to sneeze at for sure. He's beat Calvin Kattar, Dan Hooker, Sadiq Youssef, and Gilbert Melendez, so some decent wins here too, not just notable losses. He has a very solid portfolio. He has knockouts in his recent wins and a run of decisions before that, so a little bit of variability in Arnold Allen. His opponent, Giga Chikadze, has also been in the UFC a while. 2019 was when he started, and all of his wins have come in the UFC, or he's basically had all wins in the UFC besides one. He lost to Calvin Kattar, so a little common opponent there. Giga lost to Calvin Kattar. Arnold Allen beat him, so what do you think? But he has beat Alex Caceres, Giga, Edwin Barboza, and Cub Swanson. I think some middle tier guys, so this should be a good one Two contenders going at it, and Giga's fights or his wins specifically, are split equally between decisions and knockouts. So a little bit of variability here. Let's see what this fight will hold. I think this will be a good fight, honestly. But I do like Allen. He has a stronger portfolio, and he's also 5 years younger in his hometown fighting. So I think that'll factor in majorly. Obviously, his odds aren't ideal at almost minus 250, but another good piece we might add to a parlay later. Also, think you sneak a little half unit on him by decision, as it seems Giga has a tough chin. So if Allen was to win, it'd be by decision, and also vice versa if you like Giga in this fight. So our fourth fight, and this is the fight I mentioned, our I'm like screwing up all day, dude. Our second fight in the main card, the fourth fight, when you look at the ESPN from the top down, which I don't know why they do that way. Well, I get it, but is a middleweight bout between Christian Leroy Duncan, minus 150 favorite, versus Gregory Rodriguez, plus 125. So this is the fight I was talking about that replaced the Cape fight earlier. Why is this here? I don't know either of these guys, and this is our fourth to last fight of the night. I think this one could easily be the last one on the prelims. I know it's middleweight, so that's people love middleweight, but this one, man, I looked at it, I was like, what's going on here? So let's dive in. I don't understand this placement, but Dana, do your thing. Christian Leroy Duncan is our British man in this fight. He's got a 10-1 career record. That includes being 3-1 in the UFC. I don't know any of the fighters he's fought. Shocker, once again. All of his wins have come via knockout, and one loss was by decision. And his opponent, Gregory Rodriguez, way more time in the UFC, 8-2. His notable win is over Brad Tavares, so nothing crazy there. 5 out of his 6 wins have come via knockout, and one of those was decision. Of the 6 wins, so 5 knockouts, 1 decision, and his 2 losses, 1 knockout, 1 decision. So once again, I'll be staying away from this one. I think I said I might want to keep this one to not go the distance, but the odds just on that aren't even great either. This is where I collect myself from either losing every single bet until now or being on a hot streak and waiting for my real big units to hit here with these last 3 fights. Take a breath, just sit back, enjoy UFC, man. Don't bet on this fight. Crazy variability. It's a toss-up. Odds indicate that. I'm good. So won't be betting on this one. Now we get into the meat and bone of the card. Our last 3 fights. Starting it off with the third fight on the main card. A lightweight bout between number 15, formerly known as Bobby, now King Green. He's minus 115, and he faces off against Paddy Pimblett, who is minus 105. So 2 storied guys here for different reasons. King Green, very established career in the UFC. He's been around for a very long time. His wins include beating Jim Miller, which we saw at UFC 300, as I think that was the second fight in the card. He's beat Tony Ferguson, and he has losses against Jalen Turner, Drew Dober, Islam, he fought and lost to Fiziev, and Drakkar Klose. He's a consistent fighter. It seems like Bobby King Green is fighting every 3 months. There's always something going on. I fell in love with him the first time I watched him fight in like 2022 in the summer. I think he submitted Tony Ferguson, but you can always count King Green into the fight, man. He is a good guy. Like what I see from him, but he is 38 years old, which is 8 years older than Paddy Pimblett, and also has 2 inches less of reach. So we'll see what can King Green do here. His opponent, Paddy Pimblett. This is one of the main draws of the card for Brits to come and stay up late. They love them some fucking Paddy Pimblett. So he's from the area, if you don't know that. And I expect that this will play a large factor in this fight. Paddy's 5-0 in the UFC, but this will be his first real test because beating Tony Ferguson, who was training with David Goggins, doesn't count, bro. Clearly, Tony Ferguson is not really that impressive of a win, which is a little scary because we'll talk about my pick in a second. So his last 2 fights have gone to decision, and before that he had 2 submissions and a knockout in his 3 and plus 2. You get what I mean? The crowd will be heavily backing him, as I mentioned before, and he's one of the most popular fighters in the UK. So that leads me to take Paddy. Love him straight up here. Little minus 105 action. Shouldn't be too bad. It's basically a straight up bet. I think this could be a passing of the torch moment. That'll get Paddy into the ratings, into the number 15 ranking spot, get him to start moving up a little bit, because I know the UFC loves him some Paddy Pimblett. Green, I think, has been around a while. He's coming near the end. Narratively, I just think it works better for Paddy to win this fight, but that doesn't always come true, so we'll see what happens. But I think this sets up well for Paddy to join the rankings and start to move up the rankings a bit and get some more and more hype around him. like a little Shane O'Malley trajectory, but except a little older and probably not as good as Shane O'Malley. Well, definitely not as good as Shane O'Malley, but Sean O'Malley, sorry. But you know what I mean. So narratively, I think it all fits for Paddy to win this. Putting the pieces together, along with the crowd that'll be backing every punch he makes. They'll be going crazy. So I do like this fight to go the distance, but I might add that to a parlay. Won't take that straight up. So I do want to pat myself on the back here. I had those said bonus bets from DraftKings and used them on July 1st. Threw one on Paddy plus 154, and now he's down to minus 105. So a little payday for your boy if Paddy does end up taking this. And what does that tell you? That he was plus 154 3 weeks ago, and now he's minus 105. I don't know. Does it just get tighter with fight weeks? I don't know, but I like Paddy. Keeping it moving, we have our second last fight of the night, a interim title fight, which is so stupid. John Jones, get your ass in there. Fight Stipe, get this over with. We want to see you face Aspinall. Anyways, heavyweight interim belt battle between the interim champ, Tom Aspinall, who's minus 380, versus Curtis Blaydes, number 4 contender, plus 280. So before I go into it, these two fought before, and Blaydes knocked him out 15 seconds in. I've been meaning to watch this fight, but I couldn't get to it in time to put this podcast out. But Blaydes is 1-0 in this record. So a little bit about Tom Aspinall. Obviously, I'm just preaching to the choir here if you guys actually know UFC, but Aspinall 8-1 in the UFC. His only loss was that quick knockout to Blaydes. He's beaten notable heavyweights Volkov, Pavlich, and Tybura, and not a single fight he's ever been in his career has made it to round 3, and only one in the UFC has gone to round 2, which is just an absurd stat. I think this fight's going to bring fireworks. This is awesome. Honestly, this main card's going to be pretty cool, besides that sleeper fight I was talking about. And if they switched in the other kid who needed the contract, bro, let's go. Like, come on, this would be a good main card, man. And we've been fucking lacking in July with the Rose fight, beating the eyelash off a chick, and then last week, I don't even know those people. So I like this card. It's getting a lot of hate online, but I think this is going to be a good card. Anyways, so Aspinall, heavily knockout, as stated before. He does have some submissions mixed in there. His only losses have come via one knockout, one submission, and one disqualification. So he doesn't really go down much. And talking about Curtis, he's been around since 2016, almost 10 years on the job. He has some impressive wins. Well, some of these aren't that impressive, like Jailton Alameda, but he has beat Chris Daukaus, Rosenstruik, Volkov, Junior Dos Santos, Alistair Overeem, but he did lose to Pavlich, Derek Lewis, and Ngannou. 3 solid guys, though, in the heavyweight division. A lot of his fights, there's some knockouts mixed in there, but a small amount of decisions. So he actually does have the ability to start round 3, and this fight will be 5 rounds if it makes it there, but we all know that round 3 bell ain't ringing, so we'll see. Blaydes did fight in March recently, so he is a little bit more on the recent side. He's got a 2-inch reach advantage, and he's 1 inch shorter than Tom, so whatever that means to you people out there you go. My picks, these boys are going to be swinging for the fences. I already threw a bonus bet on Tom back in the day of that July 1st. He was like minus 250 at the time. I also took him and someone else in the next fight. But yeah, he's dropped down almost 200 points instead. He's almost at minus 400. Just not worth my time, honestly. If you're feeling frisky, I think there is some like honor in taking Blaydes here. I think there is a slight chance that he wins. But make sure it's money you're willing to part with. Don't put your actual savings and shit on this because Aspinall's a dog. And he lines up as one of the bigger favorites in this whole card. So I love Aspinall, and take all the unders you can get. This fight may be over in 1 minute and 30 seconds, maybe over in 2 minutes, maybe over in 10 seconds. This will be a crazy fight. I'm looking forward to watching this one. I predict Aspinall will come out on top, though, but I'm not really at anything to bet on. And our last fight of the night, it is the welterweight title battle / fight. I don't know why I said battle a million times this podcast. We have the welterweight, as I just mentioned, champ Leon Edwards, minus 265, and he goes off against the number 2 contender Belal Muhammad, who is plus 215 on the money line, major underdog for a title fight. So this is once again a rematch. In 2021 they fought, which ended in a no contest. I believe Leon poked Belal Muhammad's eye, which was unfortunate, but let's get into him. So Leon Edwards, I'm making my case for him. I think he's one of the most underrated fighters in the UFC right now. He has not lost a fight since 2015, almost 10 years without losing a fight. Yes, I will give you that he's not that active as other champions, but when he beat my boy Usman twice, fair and square. That that regards highly, and I think the world of Leon Edwards. I did bet on him last time he fought against Colby. Thought that was easy money. He did fight Colby only a couple months ago. Well, it was like 7 months ago, but still, I'm loving Leon. As just a fan observing MMA, he's awesome to watch. Nate Diaz should fight him again for a title. No, I'm just kidding, but Leon, man, one of the best fighters in our generation. We're gonna look back and be like, damn, like we were witnessing greatness, and we just were disrespecting him. Talking betting wise though, most of his fights do go to decision, and when he's lost, it's also been by decision. I think he only has 2 or 3 losses, so there you go. A little bit about our boy Bilal. He's also on a crazy win streak. He has not lost a fight since 2019, and when he wins, it's almost exclusively by decisions as well. He has not fought in over a year. I think he fought in like April or April or May of 2023. So Bilal, we always see him at every fucking UFC event, waiting out to get his title shot. Here you go, buddy. Leon's already beat everyone, so here's your chance again, and we'll see what happens. My picks, though, like Leon, I think is up there. I know he's high on the pound for pound rankings, but I fucking love Leon. I'm expecting him to make easy work of Bilal. I think this maybe Bilal wins a round, but I don't think that this is going to be a very close fight. Leon is just so technical and so good, especially in decision. He'll wait on you and he'll just get you. So Leon is just so good, and let's take it all this moment that he's only minus 265 here. I think he should be like Aspinall levels, bro. Leon is just fucking different. Let's take this grace with Vegas that they're giving us at minus 260 and use it in as many parlays as you want. I love Leon, bro. Leon. Bilal also is a rat, sitting around waiting, pulling an Izzy and just doing nothing. Gets a title shot. Vegas knows it. That's why he's plus 215. Leon by decision. Let's rock. So that'll wrap up every fight on UFC 304. Now let's go into my official picks / things I'll be betting on. So little sprinkle of the units here, a little chump change. I find a couple quarters in Jakar, throw some money on this shit. So here we go. This is the things I'll be betting on. Not like locks, but things that I like. So parking by decision, mentioned before. Think any method of win is always a little risky. So because you have 3 options, and also the fighter to win. So parking by decision, a little half unit there. Parkin versus Bresky to go the distance, early prelim. So take it what you're gonna get, but I do like that fight to go the distance. Patterson by sub, as I admitted before, I think is worth a little long shot, a little half unit again. Arnold Allen by decision, half unit. Why not? I think Giga has a tough chin, as I mentioned before. Pimblett by decision. I think King Green's a lot closer to Patty than a lot of the other ones I just mentioned, but that's what makes this one a little more risky. Sometimes you got to risk it for the biscuit. Patty by decision. And also Patty and King to go the distance. I don't know. This one might end early. Both of them have histories of knockouts and submissions, so we'll see what happens with that fight, but I do like it to go the distance on that. So here we go. My official card for you guys. I got 4 picks, 2 parlays, and 2 straight up picks. So first, we'll start off with an early prelim plus 2 main card money lines, but I trust them all. So, and this ends you at like plus 104, I believe. We got Parkin money line. I think he's like minus 300. Arnold Allen, who's like around minus 260, and Leon Edwards, who's also minus 260. So parlay those 3. Give you a nice little plus 104 there, plus money. We love to see it. That's the first parlay. Second pick is going to be a straight up pick. My boy Pacino, who I mentioned to you before, got him on the money line. Little plus 135 action. Let's do it. Believe in him as my underdog for this fight that I'm really confident in. So Pacino, let's get it. Second parlay, Hadley and Lufron to go the distance, and also Bilal and Leon to go the distance. Little plus 106 action for you there. All we see is plus signs, baby. Well, besides his last pick, but as mentioned before, I don't think Bilal has a chinny chin. I don't think he's gonna get knocked out. Don't think Leon gets knocked out either. I think no matter what happens in this fight, even if you back Bilal somehow, I think it goes the distance. And then Hadley versus Lufron. I also believe what I mentioned before about you come down to the UFC, you be a little more conservative. You gotta get acclimated to the system. I think that one goes the distance as well. And then our last pick, little Patty Pimblett straight up. I don't know if I'll double down on this one. I already have the bonus bet, so I probably won't actually bet this, but I'm in love with Patty for you guys out there. I think you should take him as soon as you hear this podcast. His odds are probably already dropping. So once again, another UFC card in the books, complete. Every fight from the early prelims to the main card. Appreciate you guys for sticking along this long with me, going through it all, and hope you guys all have success with your betting weekends. I know I'll be trying my best to win again after the success at 303, but I fear that this isn't going to go as well, just due to odds, and not odds, but just due to, you know, Murphy's Law. So appreciate you as always. Of course, we will be back for UFC 305. Already have a future bet that I placed for that one. We'll talk about that at the time, but hoping to have Bird on again as a guest. He was just gone this weekend, so unfortunately we could not record together. But nonetheless, the Dubcast will be continuing to surge on until UFC 305. If you're only here for the UFC video somehow, there you go. August we'll be back, and then everything at the Sphere, everything at that will cover you, and we got you. In terms of my other podcast, 2 days after this one comes out, a little Good Morning Vietnam review. Been mentioning that in the podcast before, so that'll be coming out. Then House of the Dragon next week. Succession, I'm caught up finally. May have took a month gap in between watching 2 episodes, but we'll talk about that. So season 2 episodes 1 through 5 review should be out next week. And then along with that, as always, the movie reviews, keep them coming. Anything I feel like touching on for sports, maybe we'll talk about MLB, but probably not. So yeah, love the support as always. Views have been doing really well, and always love the constructive criticism. So if you feel like something's wrong with this podcast, feel free to drop it down below in the comments. If you liked it, leave a like. If not, don't dislike it, because my ratios are really bad. So appreciate you as always. And last thing, I did notice there was an audio issue. I think this one should be better. So yeah, got the audio fixed. Hopefully, if it wasn't, let me know. As always, be easy and bet responsibly. I'm not responsible for any of your betting picks. I just look at things and make predictions. Peace.